So, this beautiful verse, the key thing that we discussed in the previous session was that the first 5 sutras are essentially and very directly linked to the Sambhavopaya, direct meditation, Sambhu and Sambhava, what is related to Shambhu, the Paramashiva Tattva. That is how it starts with Chaitanya Mahatma. And then in the 5th sutra, it says Vidyama Bhairavaha, that is the destination. The practice would be such that you reach the destination of complete, make your Sambhavopaya sadhana much easier, stable, and helpful in ascending to the highest plane. So it's like a groundwork for making the 5th sutra fruitful. To practice that 5th sutra, realize the benefits of it, we have to pay attention to the 6th sutra. I've already told you that in this book, the highest principle, the concept, the philosophy was discussed in the first verse itself, Chaitanya Mahatma. It summarizes all of this non-dual Shaivism. And then slowly we are elaborating. So first we are knowing a little about the destination, like in Yoga Sutras we dealt with the Samadhi Pada. Then we are expanding our discussion in order to bring in the details. The final mission statement is kind of captured in the initial discussion, and then we are going to the details to how to realize it. The more we expand, the more we'll be dealing with the details. So in the last session, we have dealt with the Siva Sutra Vimarshini of Khyamaraja, how he commented on that, on this particular idea of what is Sakti Chakra Sandhane, Sakti Chakra Sandhane Vishwa Sanghara. So the whole universe disappears. It doesn't physically disappear, but he's talking about how it loses control over you. That means the Paramashiva Tattva, which has manifested itself by hiding his Swatantriya and play acting this whole universe, is setting us a task. It's like, used to play that Rubik's Cube, which was perfect, and suddenly the teacher jumbles and gives it to you and says that you set it right again to test your intelligence and quickness in achieving it. Similarly, Bhagavan has placed us here as having this pasubhava and giving us the challenge to show to him, to show to ourselves what is our divine nature and how to attain it. Because our Swarupataha, whether it's Vedanta or Kashmir Saivism, essentially says that we just need to recognize our purity to regain it. And how to regain it? A lot of processes. Therefore, he started with mentioning that how does it happen? By, you try to ensure that whatever is outwardly your attention, which is and then you have inner attention, outward engagement. Your interventions are outward, and that is why he mentions. So you have bahirmukha antar lakshya. So your goal is to reach the self and your pure self-understanding. And therefore and then he mentioned that how does that happen? So there are 3-4 things which are discussed, and we will try to conclude this whole thing. There are 3-4 words that he mentioned in these in this whole understanding. The key thing is that is mentioning here. How do you meditate on that Anakhya Sakti is mentioning? There is a beautiful author. I think he's an European author, Diskoski, and he lives in. I think mostly he is in Banaras, sometimes in Europe, and gives a lot of talk. And he has also written a book on this, and he sort of gives more attention to Kshemaraja and sometimes also to Varadaraja, but he's not very detailed. He sort of, you can also look at this, but he summarizes in a very quick way. You can also look at other books which are available. I have sent one PDF file to you. That's good enough. So he's saying that how do you sort of reach to that original consciousness? He's saying that when you have this udyama bhairava that you are trying to achieve it, how does he mention it? Mrutyum cha kalam cha kala kalapam. So you're meditating on that mrityu and kala, death and time, kala kalapam, all activities, vikara jatam, all the emotions, all that modifications that happen, pratipatti satmyam, all perceptions, ekatmya, nanatmya, vikalpa jatam, sada sa sarvam kavali karoti. So that parashamvit, that supreme consciousness, when you are returning to it, what is the trick? Because we are trapped in the diversities, we are trapped in the details, we're trapped in multiple activities. And we have to understand how these multiple activities are possible, what is the interlinkage, what are the secrets which explain how they become like this. And in the last session, we discussed how the Pancha Shakti of Paramashiva, the Swatantra Shakti, is fivefold in nature, and then that gets limited and inverted when it is sort of not like Vedanta, because God is creating this whole illusion himself, that Maya Shakti becomes now Pancha Kanchukatva. Five veils kind of prevent us from retaining our universal nature, our supreme nature. Then we are trapped. Okay, the Ananda Shakti becomes Raga, and the sarva kartikatva, that you kriya sakti, becomes kala. Similarly, everything gets inverted and limited, that we have discussed in the introduction class. Therefore, he's saying to return to that original consciousness, we have to see how this has spread out. Lord Shiva and Shakti, the moment they are seen as different, all Shakti is of Lord Shiva. They are one thing seen in two aspects. When we forget to see the unit, then we are trapped in the details and the Shakti start working on us. So, Ajnataschet Vadika, Ajnataschet Sadhika, she'll liberate us. She'll give you liberation if you understand how these Shaktis operate. Therefore, he's saying, Srimad Bharavalli also, in that text, he says, Yatra Sarve Layam Yanti, where all these details lose their significance. Why? Because we are seeing them as different. You see, we had discussed about the Varna Matrikas. Jnanam Bandha, after that, we have discussed about the Varna Matrikas. So therefore, he's saying, Yatra Sarve Layam Janti, Dahyante Tattva Sanchayaha. All the 36 tattvas that we discussed, they lose their significance. They get bogged down. Tang chittim pasya kayastham. That particular consciousness which is there in all of us, kala nala samanvitam, samatvisham, kala nala samatvisham. That kalagni which is there in the Prithvi Tattva, kalagni rudraha, starting from there, ascending onwards, all the Shaktis are working. Now you'd ask me this question. There's another same thing is mentioning. How do you that meditate on this Anakhya Sakti to return Sakti Chakra Sandhan? What is this? What is Sakti Chakra Sandhan? First, we have to understand then what is Sakti Chakra. That is critical. And there is a beautiful definition here. What is that Sakti Chakra? Parameshwari Yavihi Saktivihi. That supreme Parameshwari, Swatantra Shakti of Lord Shiva, that Parashakti. Parameshwari Yavi Saktiviti Vishwam Veda 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 Bhumikashu. You have three bhumis. One is Aveda Bhumika, Veda Bhumika, Veda Veda. Similarity and difference and unity. There are three levels at which this whole reality can be conceptualized. Veda, Aveda, Veda Veda Bhumikashu Dharayati. Then he's saying, Taha Asya Tisraha Saktayaha. Then of her, all these three Shaktis are there. Okay? And then what are these Shaktis? Three Shaktis. para, apara, para, para. So you have para, apara. Para is that which is subtler, very subtle. Apara, which is gross. And para, para is a mixture. Para and apara, mixture of what is para and what is apara. Cha devyaha, of this devi. Tasham, of these three. Adharavhuta. Then he's saying samasti rupa. What is this parasakti, aparasakti, and paraparasakti? And that is there in the all the Sakta Paramparas that we do. Paravidya, aparavidya, paraparavidya. Similarly, you have parashakti, aparashakti, paraparashakti, is that middle which is partly para and partly apara. And parasakti is extremely, is very subtle. And aparasakti is gross. You can see it. You can guess how it works from the results thereof. And he's saying, what adharavhuta samasti rupa paraya api paratara. That what is parasakti, it is subtler than that. And what is that? Purna parameshwari shakti. That is Purna parameshwari. That is the essential nature of that Chinmayi Shakti, which is Swatantra Shakti of Lord Shiva. Taha chatasraha, these four, what? Para, apara, parapara. Then what is paratara? Supreme, Purna, that Supreme Shakti, these four. Vishwam, Srishtau, Sthitau, Sanghritau. There are three states of samsara. You have creation, you have sustenance, and you have destruction. And these four Shaktis are working at all these, and you have to equate these four multiplied by three. How many they become? They become, each Shakti creates, sustains, and destroys. There are finer details there. So they become 12-fold. Cha dharayantyo dvadasatam upayanti. They attain that 12-foldness. Then he's saying, Vishwam Sishto Stito Sangrutaha. Tasam eva samuhena sambit rupa atma paribhrto vartate. That sambit rupa atma, Chaitanya atma. It's surrounded by, enwrapped by, by these Shaktis that are working. So that is the whole thing is Shakti Chakra. We are talking about Shakti Chakra Sandhana Vishwashanghara. First, we are understanding this is the Shakti, and that it's manifesting in so many ways. Also, Shakti Samuha, this particular conglomerate, or to taking together all these Shaktis, Eva hi Shakti Chakra Rupam. That is what is called Shakti Chakra Rupa. Then it's also called Kali Chakram Vishwasya Kalanakaratvat. It's also called Kali Chakra. It's also called this Shakti Chakra, Kali Chakra, etc. So what is Shakti Chakra Sandhane Vishwashanghara? So more or less you have made sense of it. But earlier, if you remember, when we were discussing about the Varna Matrikas, I had mentioned that all these, you can say that the Swara Varnas, then you have the Ka Varga, Cha Varga, Ta Varga, Ta Varga, Pa Varga, 5. Then you have Ya, Ra, La, Va, Sa, Sa, Ha. So all these, if you say these are 7, total of 7 there. To n ones, and the Swara Varnas, if you put together the 50, they become 7. And then there is one Asta, the Ashtavarga, 8th one is that Maheshwara or Mahalakshmi Tattva. So all these Vargas are mentioned. And what are each Varga had an Adhishtatri Devata. These were Maheshwari, Brahmani, Komari, Vaishnavi, Aindri, Yamya, Chamunda, Yogeshi. And then the Sakti, also the Antakarana, is, like Khechari, Bhuchari, Dikchari, Gochari, dealing with different aspects. Okay, so this whole thing, remember, O, U, Ma, and Turyavastha. Okay, O, Jagrata Avastha, then you have Swapna Avastha, then you have Susupti Avastha, then you have Jagrata Avastha. And there is a corresponding Sakti mentioned about it, that Khechari, Bhuchari, Dikchari, Gochari. So there's a lot of mysticism involved in it. Just let's make sense of it like this. There's a whole universe of energies of the supreme consciousness called Paramashiva, which is just one Shakti, remember, unified, that Paraparatara, Paratara, or that ultimate Purna, Swatantra Shakti. That's actually one Shakti. But in order to explain to us all the details, like one government has several departments, similarly, God's magical creative power, first we split that into fivefold. You have Chit Shakti, Ananda Shakti, and Kriya Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Icha Shakti. We understand it like this. Then we further go on elaborating. The details in which suddenly we are lost is because of the workings of all these Shaktis. Now, if you want to perfect any of your insufficiencies, any of your debilities, you take a medicine to deal with that disease. Ultimately, the body benefits, the mind benefits, the whole system benefits. Similarly, there are two levels of this meditation. One level is upasana of these Shaktis for betterment of our performance and our excellence in a certain field. To strengthen that, we do Shakti Upasanas. But when we analyze and meditate on these, that Anaksha, that Parameshwari Shakti, when we meditate, that is Anaksha, nameless. There's no clear name for it. There are several names. But the complete one Shakti has no, that is Anaksha is mentioning, that when we start meditating on that, then we start the inward journey for self-realization. Okay, that is that. Then what is mentioned, that the experience which is anuttara is absolute. There is no further. There is nothing more to achieve. There is no further to look forward to. And how does that happen? That happens because of what they call this blossoming of paraprativa, that supreme creative intuition which appears in us, what happens in us. Then this is independent of all causes. The consciousness reflects the universe within itself. The consciousness manifested the universe out of itself. What it required? An outward orientation. Like, for example, a naughty child is asleep on the mother's lap. Imagine a person who is sitting in meditation or quiet, and then he goes to office, he does so many things, you achieve so many things. You are able to do so many things. Like a politician who wins an election, becomes a minister, he's doing so many things. And then he returns and he's quiet. Similarly, now you are trying to sort of, that udyama observes this happening, that bhairava patti, you're attaining yourself, your swarupa, that consciousness you are returning to by seeing through the details. Please meditate on this. You see through by meditating, you understand these natures and you transcend it, not by fighting with them, by turning to yourself, by turning to that supreme consciousness. Then that happens and you meditate on your own nature. Then this udyama happens, that's what he's mentioning. And this void of a consciousness, when it is becoming complete, there are two aspects to it. Jnanam bandha, when we did that, we have thought about it, we have analyzed it. There are two aspects to it. One is that you have swatantriya hani, and then your swatantriya anavabodhata. You lose it, and then you can't recognize that Swarupata, you are like this. Therefore, you are trapped. It's like you have forgotten the password of your bank account. You got a lot of money, but you are borrowing because you don't know the password. It's just something similar. Therefore, when is the greatness of our consciousness becomes itself? When is it realized? When we are able to see the powers of our consciousness. When Shiva is able to realize the parts of his consciousness, and what are his powers, his Shaktis. Sakti Chakra Sandhane Vishwasangharaha. Now he has seen through the game of these Shaktis. Then the outcome of the interplay of these Shaktis, which is the Sansara, they are no more bothering him. He has seen through the whole game. If I can take the language of Advaita Vedanta or Mandukya Karika, once you see through all that is happening, You are absolutely not touched by any of these because you identify with all these things. So far, you are in office, you are in a position, you have so much of importance that you attribute to yourself. You feel responsible. You go early to the office before anybody reaches, and you are waiting for people to arrive. You do everything. And then suddenly you decide you are leaving this company, you serve the notice, you're going to go in about 3 months' time. Now you have decided, or you make sense of it that it's not going to work, you have to leave. You may be there, you may be doing everything, but you have returned to yourself. You don't have that tadatmya, you don't have that sense of identification. You are outwardly oriented, still engaged, but you have also started looking within at yourself. When that movement starts of inward journey, this whole outward reality, wherever you may be involved, it loses its importance for you. That itself is narrated as Vishwa Sangharaha. Now there is a beautiful aspect to it. And he's saying what antarmukha. He's saying what is antarmukha and bahirmukha. So you are trying to be predominantly antarmukha. And there is interesting thing that when you are able to meditate more and more on the Sakti Chakra and how they fan out and how they facilitate or influence or induce, so to say, the apparent part, you're not excited because something is coming into your hands or something is going out because you are returning. These are delusional. These lose their importance for you. And you are slowly going towards within yourself. Now remember one thing. There is a last previous session I mentioned about krama and akrama and why so. Because this sansara is a krama srishta and akrama srishta, and we've discussed that in the previous session. When is because of his ajnana, everything is evident. Akrama. And then krama, because it's pasastra, one thing follows another. You have studied about the whole process of panchikarana. How from the this akasha, akas, then vayu, then agni, then jala, and then prithvi tattva, carrying the qualities of the causal qualities will be in the effect, and how therefore the prithvi tattva will have 5 qualities, akasha will be 1 quality, sabda, and vayu will have sabda and a sparsha, and fire will have sabda, sparsha, and a rupa. Jala will have sabda, sparsha, rupa plus its special quality, which is rasa, and then prithvi will have that grahana in addition to upper 4. That's how it has all the 5 qualities. This is the krama srishti. You see through both. You take care of both through that meditation on the inner self, and therefore you are returning to your inner thing through this meditation. Okay, that is what he's mentioning. Now let's look at this whole. The critical thing is saying, how do you actually meditate on it? And then there was this sentence that we dealt with, Uchara Rahitam Vastu. It is unspeakable. Cheta Saiva Vichintayan. How do you meditate on it? Are you going to use mantra and all? No. You are at a very superfine stage. You are beyond these mantras and all Sakto upayas and Arnava upayas. No, you are at a higher, much higher level. Uchara Rahitam. It's that paravak thing. So uchara rahitam vastu cheta saiva vichintayan. You just meditate within in your consciousness. You meditate, you reflect, contemplate on it, not through words and mantras. Tam chittim pasya kayastam, and that particular thing, kalanala samanvitam, that kalagni, that rudra thing. So we have, while discussing Udyama Bhairavaha, heard about one word called Sambhava Samaveshaha or Bhairava Apatti. Shambhava, that Sambhu, that Paramashiva Tattva, you have that Samadhi, that particular inner resolution when all your consciousness is focused on that idea, the supreme consciousness called Paramashiva, Sambhava Samavesha. You are in that state of full self consciousness, which is one with the universal, supreme, transcendent consciousness. That consciousness is Vishwamaya Vishwotirna. It is at once immanent and transcendent, and you are fully there. It's not Nirvikalpa Samadhi of the Yoga Sutras. It's that complete thing. It's more like Vedanta, where you are fully meditating on that Brahman. Here you are one with the Paramashiva Tattva. And they're saying, Yang Samavesham Apunoti, that particular Paramashiva Tattva, where you get that Samavesham, Saktaha, so Atra Avidiyate. That we are referring to as Sakta Samavesha here. The Sakta Samavesha, the Sakta Upaya, is discussed here as a necessary step towards realizing the Sambhava Samavesha, Ambhava Samavesha. Therefore, and then what happens when you are able to do it in Samadhi state? Of course, we are at that supreme consciousness, but the magic of the sadhana is such that even in Bhuthana Dasa, because we have meditated on the details, Sakti Chakra Sandhana we have done, how it's working. That is the beautiful aspect of this. We are not rejecting everything as Maya like a Advaita Vedantist. We are seeing how everything manifests, how they are working out. All emotions, all perceptions, as they say. And you see everything. Oh my God, this is working through the Sakti. This is how it's working out. You see everything. You see the whole play thing on the stage. And then you don't reject it as Maya, absolutely not. But you are being contemplative, and therefore you are able to deal with the Jagat no more as a cage, as a source of your bondage. But in fact, you are just relishing it because you know this is how it's going to play out. And you are not to be trapped in it because you can be here and you will be beyond this. You need not have to completely reject everything and vanish into the forest. You can be here and not here. This is a beautiful, visual imagination. If you do about what it means, you can write one of the beautiful poems. Maybe just think about it, that you are there and you're not there. You are completely, sort of within yourself, and yet you are dealing with everything. Very comparable with what we hear about the Jivana Muktas. They're released, they are happy, they understand because a part of the things are continuing, but they know they are liberated. And this is this Sambhava Samavesha is that place where the Bhuthana Rasa also is not a source of your limitation. Atha idrik bhairava patir bandha prasama karanat. Atha idrik, this particular thing, bhairava patti. So when you have that bhairava samapatti or whatever, that Bhairava Patir Bandha Prasama Karanath. So, because the Lord of the universe, when you're meditating on him, and then he sort of cuts through all your bondages, all your chains, Bhuttanatya Bhavet Santa, Bheda Bhasam Iti Riyate. So, this whole Bhuttanadasa, you have now learned that the details are just an appearance. Bheda Bhasa. These are not Bheda. There is no duality. Everything is Paramashiva. The Shaktis are there. You have done the Shakti Chakra Sandhana. You know how these multiple ways in which this Swatantra Shakti of Lord Shiva is responsible for this creation, and these details are working out, and this whole play is going on. But you know what is the source of it and what is the main Shakti of it. So you sort of try to gather and bring them back, and that is one Swatantra Shakti. And then what is it? It's not independent from the Supreme Shiva, it's his Shakti, and then you're uniting with that Supreme Consciousness. Bhuttanam cha bhave santam. So this Bhuttana Dasa also gets pacified with this supreme knowledge of Supreme Consciousness, the Supreme Unity. Therefore, he's saying, Evam Jagiti Paraprativa Unmesha Avastopayika Bhairava Samapattim. You get that? So that particular thing emerges in you, that forceful, intuitive consciousness. Ajnana Bandha Prasameika Hitum, and that is responsible, one single reason, to cut asunder all the bondages which confuse us, trouble us, pain us, harass us. Pradarshya etat Paramarsa Prakashad, and when you have this meditation and it becomes very intensified, Vyuthanapi Prashanta Vedavahasam Bhavati. Even though you are physically active, that Vyuthana Rasa, you start treating that as just an appearance. It doesn't pose any challenge to you anymore. So you are being able to participate in Lord's Leela no more as somebody who is in chains, but as somebody who is enlightened and who is participating in Lord's play with a prayer to reunite with Him, and is already with Him. Then he's mentioning, then there is a beautiful thing mentions Khyamaraja, Tada Prakasananda Sara Mahamantra Viryatmaka Purna Ahanta Vesata. You regain that Purna Ahanta Jnana. Return to self means what? You are regaining your Swatantra Shakti, you are being aware of it. And that, Apurna Manyata and Swatantra Hani, these two things. You lose your independence and autonomy, and you have Apurna Manyata. I am not full, I am helpless, I am in bondage. Because you are forgetting that you are fully Swatantra, you are fully liberated. You're no different from Paramashiva. That's what is mentioned. Purnahanta Vesat Sada Sarva Sarga Sangharakari, Sarva Sarga, all the creation. It demolishes it, not physically. It demolishes its impact. It doesn't have any force on us. Nija Sambit Devata, and you regain your self consciousness. Chakreshwarata. You have the Shakti Chakra, and who is the boss of this whole Shakti Chakra? Paramashiva. He is the Chakreshwara. Chakreshwareta praftir bhavati iti Shivam. And that is Mangala Karana. That is the real essence of all sadhana. When we are reuniting with our own essential inner nature, which was hidden from our own eyes. We weren't able to see that pure nature of ours. That's what he's mentioning. Then he's saying, Vyuthanam cha bhavet santa bheda bhasam itiriyate sakti chakra sandhane vishwasanghara. That is what, Vartikakar Varadaraja had mentioned earlier. And then what is? It is Shunya and Apurna at the same time. Why Shunya? Because you are demolishing this game of Sakti and everything, this whole Vishwa. And Purna, because you are regaining your own inner nature. And therefore he's saying, Rikta Rikto Bhayakarapya Anidat Rupini Para. That is Shunya and Purna both, that Para Rupa. Eva Swatmachit Vitto. That you see that where does Lord Shiva realize his own consciousness? Where is Parvati? We have dealt with all that. It's like Lord Shiva is seeing his own face in his own consciousness. The mirror is not outside of him. That moment of self-awareness and consciousness, that happens. And then that is Swatantra Prapti. Then he's saying, then Pramyollasa Sanaditaha. So that is how we are sort of returning to that one thing. Okay, and how does that Bheda Bhasa will go? One is the key factor is meditation on that Anakhya Sakti. That is what is Sakti Chakra Sandhana. And then there is this beautiful mention there by Kshamaraja. Yashyanmesha Nimeshabhyam Jagataha Pralayodayo. This whole sansara, Unmesha Nimesha of Paramashiva. Unmesha, in the moment he wants to manifest, he looks outside, and Nimesha closes and returns to this whole thing. Yasya Unmesha Nimeshabhyam Jagataha Pralayodayo. Pralaya and Udaya, appearance and disappearance. Tang Sakti Chakra Vibhava Prabhavam. That Sakti Chakra Vibhava, that Vaibhava which he has, Vibhava, Srishti and Sanghara, Umesha and Nimesha. You see how it has spread out, and he knows how to reduce it, how to regain yourself. When you are an expert in this, now there is a yogic secret here. When a sadhak is able to return to his inner self samadhi at will, because he realizes when he engages, he is not involuntarily getting into anything. Once he has realized, he has understood how these things happen, He's able to expand his consciousness, relate, engage with, intervene in the external world, and then return as and when he wishes. There is nothing which induces or determines when, how he will do it, because he's no more trapped in anything. Similarly, Paramashiva, I mean, that is the Swarupa of Paramashiva, and that's what we are trying to achieve, and that's what we are. Because we don't realize it, we don't understand it, we are suddenly trapped at a very lower level of consciousness, which is divisive, which is entrapped in the outside reality, the multiplicities, the divisive realities. Therefore, we are not realizing it, and we are placing in the hands of these Maya Sakti, in the hands of Prakriti, and all these Varna Matrikas. We have discussed with that. There's all whole thing, they cause how we think, how we create a world, how we become a victim of it. But once we have understood how these things happen, it's like you have these lot of mysterious buildings also, where there'll be different ways, lanes and by-lanes. If you're new to the place, you can get into it and you'll never come out of it. You'll be encircling and moving here and there. But the architect who has designed that, he knows how to get in and how to come out because he has designed this. Paramashiva has created this whole cobweb where he